When I saw Ezekiel doing so well after he was born, it actually made me feel hopeful. Part of me was like really hoping that like everything was a fluke and that everything was okay, even though I knew that was impossible. But I think I had like the worst expectations, or not the worst, but I was preparing for the worst to happen. And so seeing my son like thrive when they told me that he wouldn't was such a miracle to me that I was like, well, maybe we'll actually get to take him home. And that's kind of, I think, where I was hoping to be, but I was also really scared because I knew that he did have severe health issues and I didn't know what bringing him home would look like. And so that brought on lots of anxiety as well. So I think in the moment, I just really tried to focus on being with him, because anytime I thought about or into the future, I would be really, really nervous.
And I would, after seeing Ezekiel doing so well with, Itzel doing skin to skin, the doctors letting us know that his heart rate was going up, I was kind of in the similar boat, just thinking, oh, wow, our son's doing great. Like, I can do skin to skin now. Everything's going super well. And obviously you're naive to the fact that he's doing well right now, but the last 20 weeks have been, a roller coaster of emotions. And so I was just trying to be in the moment and know that right now is perfect. Don't think about, what tonight's going to bring tomorrow morning, the next week, month. Just be here with Itzel, with Jade, with family, and, taking these precious moments. So the fact that Ezekiel was able to live 30 hours for me was a miracle, especially after everything that the doctors had told us leading up to this moment, and the fact that when he was born, he wasn't, showing good signs as far as life and, a good steady heartbeat. And so the next 30 hours were full of spiritual experiences, full of Itzel and I growing closer together, full of, just feeling peace, feeling anxious, feeling lots of emotions all at once. But to give a broad sense, it was very exciting to know that we had such a long time when lots of couples, parents, moms don't even get to meet their kids alive. And so I feel very grateful for the fact that we were able to have him here and him to meet his close family and be here for 30 hours. And there was lots that went into the next 30 hours, but I will let you share some of that.
Yeah, so Ezekiel's 30 hours. So basically the first, I would say 5 hours were, meeting his parents, meeting his sister, meeting grandpa on both sides, some of his aunts and uncles. After they left, it was all pretty chill. We, just did normal baby stuff you do at like the hospital. They just lie on your chest. I remember the next day they asked us if we wanted to give him a bath. We gave him a bath. I remember we delayed a lot of like the 24-hour testing that they did, but we did have someone come in and do a heart scan or a heart ultrasound, a heart echo, just because they wanted to get an idea of what his heart, how it was doing. And so we decided to go through with that. And so about, I would probably say noon the next day, they had someone come in and do a heart echo. And that was a really special experience for us because, again, the technician that was helping us, he kind of asked like, okay, like what does he, like, he didn't really know too much about Ezekiel. And so we kind of told him, he is trisomy 13. And when we told him that, he kind of chuckled a little bit and he said, I actually have a niece who had trisomy 13 and we had, I think it was like 28 hours with her or something like that. And so he's like, I want to make sure that Ezekiel gets first class treatment. And so I remember he set up his phone with the children hymns and he played I Am a Child of God while he was doing his heart echo. And it was just such a special experience because, again, very personable, and we felt tender mercies during such hard moments. The fact that the technician knew to some extent what we were going through, and he was very, very caring about Ezekiel and his time with us. I remember he spent the entire time explaining to Brenton stuff about the heart valves and just kind of educating him on what was on the screen. And then I think that was a little bit, it was really helpful and insightful. And it kind of started, though, a little bit of like the heartache for us with Ezekiel, just because I think that day with the bath and just that long heart echo, Ezekiel was pretty he was tired. And so I think a few hours after that is when we started to see his decline in health. And so we had quite a bit of a pediatrician had come in quite a few times and told us about Ezekiel, how he was doing well, but the heart echo would really, really determine what these next couple days and hours would be like, and it would help us determine what kind of care we would need for him if we decided to take him home. The second day, it was a Saturday. It was a pretty busy day. I remember our friends brought us over dinner. They dropped off dinner for us, and Ezekiel was only content when he was on my chest. We never got to put any clothes on him or anything like that. He was just always happy on my chest. Most of the time he would get pretty fussy or flustered if he was, if I had to put him down or anything like that. He just wanted to be with mom, which made me feel great. But I remember we were having dinner and Brenton was having to feed me because I was very immobile with him on my chest. But those are moments that I look back and I really, really just appreciate those moments. So yeah, those were kind of towards the end of the night. We had been trying to nurse and he had been doing pretty well. They weren't really stressing too much about it, but it was mostly into the night that he started to really, really come slowly downhill. They started to notice that his breathing was having issues with when he was trying to eat, and so that was causing lots of uncertainty with his heart rate and things like that. It was probably later that evening that we found out that his heart echo came back and he did have quite a bit of issues in his heart, which kind of made sense with everything that kind of transpired throughout the night. Mostly when it came time to feed, it was pretty hard. I can't remember what time it was.
I think it was, around 11 p.m. on Saturday night, and he essentially, Itzel and I had both been up long day because we didn't want to miss out on any of the different tests that were going on. And I remember Itzel was just exhausted, and I said, hey, you know what? Go ahead, sleep. I'll just, roll Ezekiel around the room now that he's already had his feeding, and, see if we can get him to sleep so that you can rest. And I guess we did have, one big episode and then a slight one right after that. But essentially when we were there, we saw they were monitoring his heart rate with a, foot monitor, and we saw his heart rate go down pretty significantly from, 120 down to 90, down to 80, down to 70. And we were freaking out. We called the nurses, they came in, and I don't remember exactly what they did to get his heart rate back up, but they were very calm in the sense that they said, hey, we know that he has some underlying conditions, and this is a potential possibility that his heart rate will continue to decline, but let's just take it slow. Let's continue to do skin to skin. And so I think Itzel put him back on her chest and continued to do skin to skin, and we just took it extremely slow, not understanding what was going to be happening over the next 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours. And he finally was calm for 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and then it started up again, and we were kind of awake. We were what is going on?
Yeah, so he was getting a little bit more flustered, and so I thought maybe he was hungry, and it was getting to the point where he had been feeding okay, and so I would try and nurse, and he just would get really flustered, and so I remember the nurse said maybe you can try bottle feeding him, and so I remember Brenton on the edge of the bed trying to bottle feed him, and in that moment there was a moment where he just could not breathe, and Brenton automatically just put him in the bassinet and helped him kind of get everything out that he the milk that he had, and that's when we noticed that clearly it was upsetting him because he couldn't eat and breathe, and his heart could not take it all at once. Obviously we didn't really understand that in the moment. It's just you see your baby go from pink to limp, and he is not really responding, and we're calling the nurse, and the nurses are very calm, like Brenton said, because they kind of not expect it, but they kind of know that this might be a possibility with his, disorder, and so, or with his diagnosis. And so we were really freaking out. We hadn't slept, and I remember finally we were able to get him to calm down, and Brenton said, get some sleep. I'll just make sure that I'm with him here and make sure that he's being, that he's okay. And so I think prior to that, I kind of had a little bit of like a mental breakdown where I thought my son was dying. And so I kind of really, really just came down and ran to the bathroom and just like lost it. And so I think in that moment, Brenton was kind of conflicted as to what to do. And in that moment, he picked up the phone and called my mom. And he said, "Can you please come to the hospital? I think Ezekiel really needs you." And my mom came within 10 minutes, and I had no idea he had called my mom. And I just saw my mom show up, and I was like, "What do you do?" She's like, "Brenton called me." And Brenton's like, "I'm sorry, I don't know. I want to be there for you, but I also want to be there for Ezekiel, so I feel like we need someone else here." And I was just so grateful for that, because I don't even think I realized what I needed in that moment. And so it was probably about 45 minutes to 50 minutes where he was doing well, so I got to sleep, and my mom just sat there with Brenton and Ezekiel, and they watched him sleep. And it was probably around 12 a.m., 1 a.m. where he was just, again, very flustered. But it was really hard because when he wanted to cry, he couldn't really cry, and he couldn't eat. He couldn't, there was just such a mixture of things that were going wrong, and we didn't really know what to do. And I just remember at this point we chose to give him a little bit of oxygen to help supplement his breathing. But we had probably 1 or 2 more of those episodes where anytime we tried to feed him, or anytime he got overly flustered, he would just stop breathing, and he just didn't really respond. And so the nurses brought over the oxygen, and they brought over, I remember, a little monitor to have him hooked up to so we could monitor. And at that point we were just trying to figure out what do we do, what would be the next steps if we decide that we want to go ahead and intervene some more. And they kind of went on and said that if we chose to do an intervention, they would probably have to intubate him, and it would probably be really hard for him, given that he's so small, and it would be more of a risk at this point. And so they had the NICU come over, or the NICU nurse come over, and kind of just explain to us what we could do. And I think it was in that moment that it really set in that we probably were not going to decide to do much more, just because we felt that it would be harder to watch him go through that in that moment. He was pretty weak, and so I think that it would have done maybe a little bit more harm than good. And I just remember thinking I would hate to have him pass and not be in my arms. And so I think what we decided was we would just give him oxygen and, comfort him as much as we could. And he probably had one of those episodes on his own where he just couldn't breathe, and we got him on my chest. On my chest, he would kind of be able to breathe a little better, and we were monitoring him, and I just remember that it just slowly stopped, and he just passed peacefully in my arms. But we knew that was the best thing for him. We knew that he wasn't in pain. He was calm. He was loved. He was so loved, and I know that he felt that. We probably laid there with him for quite a few minutes and just held him and loved him, and I was just so grateful in that moment that I got to meet him and help him gain a body. Within a few minutes, Brenton called his mom and gave them the news, and within probably 20-30 minutes, our whole family was back in that room.
The nurses were very supportive as well, letting everyone just be in the room with us. And our family got to hold him one last time. We all sat around the room and we sang Families Can Be Together Forever. And there was just a very special spirit that filled the room that night. And we are just so grateful that we were given the opportunity to meet his sweet soul. And we feel that he really helped bring us together.